So, I recently took a trip down to San Diego to attend SDGFest, a tabletop gaming event for players in the Southern California area. And the main attraction for this event was a Kings of War tournament that had probably about a dozen players or so and went on for the full 2 days. I was not there for the Kings of War tournament, though. I was there to play Mordheim, and Chris was kind enough to reserve a spot for us Mordheim weirdos. We got a 12-foot by 6-foot table set up for us, and together with terrain from my buddy Dave and Aaron from Summon Lesser Maker, we set up a massive table to play a multiplayer Mordheim game mode that I wrote called the Clattering. Now, the Clattering is unique because it features simultaneous turns, so every player at the table is taking their turn at the same time, and players can drop in and drop out however they want, and whenever they want, because the game is meant to be played basically all day for as long as you have people willing to participate. So the cool part about the game was there were a lot of narrative and environmental sort of scenarios and events set up all over the board. So we had cultists riding around on wagons, we had a tavern full of people you could talk to and hire, we had rival tribes of orcs walking around, we had neutral zombies and necromancers doing their thing, and players are free to kind of ride around the board and interact with different things or get into whatever fights they want. The game does require a game master because there are a lot of neutral NPCs and timing events that happen throughout the day. So I served as the GM for this event. So I was there all day, paying attention to what each player was doing and making sure everyone was on the same page and in the same phase, and giving people things to do. So for example, there we had a player who met a necromancer who taught him how to raise the dead from the graveyard, so he had a horde of undead following him. We had goblins there stealing wagons from dwarves and riding them around. We had these dwarves recruiting this old man who needed a job he needed someone to escort him to his temple. We had merchants wrestling over Weirdstone and Skaven assassinating them to try and steal it. We had Skaven running around, grabbing treasures and making off with them, prevent the players from getting them. And then we even had bigger set pieces. For example, in the center we had this huge temple, and I had a dragon appear and fly around randomly, causing trouble. So the cool part about this game is there's no script, there's no sort of goal other than players are meant to earn Weirdstone by completing special quests. I had drafted up a pile of quest cards, and each player got 2 of them, and each quest sort of just tells you to do something unique, whether it's to move to a certain part of the board, or get one of your own people killed in battle, or fight a certain number of enemy warbands at the same time. Just little directions that players can have to sort of give their warband a bit of purpose on this huge game board with multiple warbands running around. So the most warbands we had on the board at one time, I think it was either 4 or 5. I'm not sure, but it felt like a lot because everyone is doing everything at the same time, and players are running around getting into their own trouble. And I think a game mode like this benefits from at least 4 players because the more players you have, the less work the game master has to do, because they can kind of entertain each other just by getting in fights. But there are little things a game master can do by just planting little interesting set pieces all over the board. So you saw there were some orcs marching across the board, and here we had this dragon was moving around randomly, and actually the scatter die caused the dragon to jump on top of a wagon that was being piloted by some neutral goblins, and then the dwarves there that are fighting the dragon now, they threw a barrel of flaming pitch at that wagon and set it on fire, And so all those goblins were killed by the combination of the flames and the dragon fighting them, and then the dwarf player was left there to fight the dragon. And then inside that old man in front of that big statue, he was the one the dwarves had escorted into that temple from across the board. And that actually became a bit of a concern for them, because once they escorted them and got paid in Weirdstone, the old man started doing some weird ritual at the statue. And so some witch hunters heard what was going on and decided to come along and investigate. So there was a big brawl at the bottom of the ladder to try and fight past the guards to see what that old man was doing. And the old man ended up sacrificing himself out the author. Here's the two rival clan of orcs fighting. The whole game they were marching across the board and nobody interacted with them, so we just had them battle, and I got to do a little solo battle there for myself. Here's an undead warband. This player was here earlier and he checked out and went to do some other stuff and then arrived later, so that's an example of the drop in drop out gameplay. But he was just marching in to see what was going on. And that old man actually completed a ritual to summon a greater demon, basically a demon prince. We gave him some weird rules. But yeah, that was another shenanigan that showed up. So it just, this game mode is really cool at just making weird stories happen, because you're just planting stuff all over the board for players to interact with. Like on that, you just saw on that other side of the table there's a Reichland warband and a Beastman warband that they were just battling each other the whole time. They didn't interact with any of this stuff. And then meanwhile, in the center of the board, we have an undead player charging the dragon, and the dragon and the demon started fighting, and there's an elf that's trying to just get away without getting killed. Ended up getting knocked down there after the dragon died, and the rest of the undead horde is closing in. So all of this story stuff was happening kind of, I was spurring things on as the game master. I was making things happen by just moving guys around and making them attack certain things, but for the most part I was there just pushing pieces around and then seeing how the players would react. And we ended up getting a lot of cool moments out of this day. And I had run this event sort of as a test a couple times. I think I played it 2 or 3 times with 3 players and another time with 4 players, including myself, just to get the turn order thing down. But the way the game is structured is every player starts with a recovery phase, and that's when people can... Oh, here we go. There's Chris there on the left, and he's presenting some winners of the painting contest that they had. So a lot of people submitted some really beautiful painted miniatures to be judged in certain categories, and there were some prizes donated from a couple companies. And this was Noah's Ogre, who had won in one of the categories. He was actually a new player to Mordheim, and he was piloting those Reichlanders you saw earlier, so that was cool to see him win some dirty down weathering effects. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, and here's the winner for the monster category, some cool squid demon thing. And then we had a squad category, so these undead pirates on this display won for that. Really cool stuff there. So anyway, the way the game works is every player gets the same recovery phase. And this is day 2. This was the setup for day 2. So everybody takes a recovery phase, and that is when players can either route their warband, remove them from the game, or they can deploy their warband anywhere on the board as long as they're not too close to any enemies. So players can drop in and out when they want. And then everybody gets a charge phase. So how charging works is everyone announces who is charging who, and then everyone rolls 1 die for each person that they're charging, or each person they're having charge. So you get to roll a handful of dice, 1 for each guy, and then you assign these dice to each unit. And once you've assigned them, you add that to their initiative, and that's basically their turn, the order in which people are charging. So you get some tactical decision making there by picking who you want to charge, and then you roll the dice to see what order they charge in. So it kind of simulates the game of chicken that gets played with every game of Mordheim when it comes time to close in on each other. This was a 3-player game we were playing before more players showed up to start day 2 of the Clattering. So I had my sisters fighting Dave's Reichlanders, and then we had another guy. Oh no, those were Dave's Undead, and then another player was using Dave's Reichlanders, and we were just having a cool little game, The Lost Prince, before day 2 started. So, but yes, so after everyone charges, then all the other movement can happen, and movement works mainly the same way it does in a regular game of Mordheim. And then instead of going into a magic shooting phase and then a combat phase, you have an action phase. And the action phase means, everyone does the same steps. It's when you're doing anything other than moving, really. So first is magic, and then shooting, and then you go into close combat, and then interaction. So interaction is something you can do. If you're not fighting, you can talk to locals or interact with objects on the board, and change the game state that way. You can carry ladders like that Witch Hunter player is doing. So all kinds of sort of role-play stuff that is not normally in a game of Mordheim. Again, just a big storytelling game with everyone at the table at once, all getting invested in each other's little goals, and also, you know, duking it out when they get close enough and when they feel like it. So here's the Witch Hunter. They saw some treasure being guarded by some bats. They then met a Bretonian knight who wanted them to go on a quest with him. Meanwhile, there's some necromancers doing stuff under the bridge. Over here we had some orcs assaulting another clan of orcs in the temple, and the Reichlanders were riding off to investigate that. Here's an example of the charging. So all those dice were assigned to those Witch Hunters to determine who get to charge first. So the Witch Hunters got initiative on that beast in there that they were hunting with that knight, and so they got to close in and start combat that way. Reichlanders here are closed in on the orcs just to, you know, earn some weird stone by killing some orcs and get some experience.
2 injury rolls, what happens?
Oh, this was a long battle that we were waiting to end.
Roll the dice. Yeah!
So the Witch Hunter player had been fighting that bat for about 4 turns, so it was funny to see that fight finally come to an end. But players can also earn experience. So every warrior that gets a kill or completes a quest, you get to earn experience. And by using the Weirdstone you're collecting by completing quests and scooping it off the board and interacting with locals and stuff, you can burn Weirdstone to basically pay for experience you've earned to then use that experience to level up. So here's a Skaven wagon had run over this undead warband. So we're determining who gets hit by the wagon here.
3, so he's stunned. Okay. So this cart just ran him over. But they survived, they're all alive. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun to just see the crazy stuff that happened when you have this many moving parts on a single board at the same time. So yeah, you get all the good parts of Mordheim. There's no post game or anything, but you're earning Weirdstone, and you can you can sell Weirdstone to merchants that are placed around the board, and then purchase new equipment. Here's some other tables at the event. People are playing 40k and Sword Weirdos and stuff like that too. So there were a few other games being played. The Witch Hunter here finally investigated those necromancers who were actually assembling a flesh golem, but they were able to foil their plans before they fully assembled it. So yeah, this was just an experiment to see how a huge narrative game of Mordheim goes, and it was really fun. I hope to sort of do a write-up and revise the rules and get them posted here. I think I'm gonna do a video actually talking about how to host your own game of the Clattering, because I think it'd be a cool thing to see more players doing, turning Mordheim into sort of this open sandbox narrative game as opposed to just a just your average miniature skirmish game. So overall, the event went really well. I was exhausted after DMing for at least 8 hours both days, but overall a really good time, and I hope to run more Clattering events in the future. And yeah, so thanks for watching another video, and I hope you have fun playing Mordheim whenever you get the chance.